This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I'm here with Nevada Current reporter Michael M.J. Lyle and my co-host David Figler, and we're discussing whether or not HOV lanes are useless, quote unquote, a pandemic-era housing program that's ending, and if you can finally bet on Uno. It's Friday, July 18th. I'm Sarah Lohman, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. David and MJ, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Howdy do, as we like to say in Southern Nevada.
Do
we? I do.
Do we?
I say it. I've said it before, and I will, in fact, say it again.
Okay.
Hella howdy do.
Howdy do, I like it.
It feels good, right?
Well, on this relatively mild Friday morning, it's under 100 degrees, y'all. We're just going to jump right into it because I am really fascinated by the fact that HOV lanes are woke now. So, David, I believe you're going to tell me about the politician who wants to get rid of Las Vegas's HOV lanes.
Yeah, well, upon deep inspection, there's not really much of a story here, but there is a big headline that showed up in the Review Journal, and that headline read, "Push to remove HOV lanes from Las Vegas Valley drives forward."
Hey.
So, A, you got your pun.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it seems like it's possibly based on the desire for our Lieutenant Governor Stavros Anthony to remind people that he is here. That he exists.
That's harsh, David.
Yeah, well, he's kind of a two-issue guy, and I think that's going to come up in my description of what's going on. Basically, he's reminding everyone that he ran on the platform to get rid of these high-occupancy vehicle lanes because, I don't know.
That's
he
the
just doesn't.
He ran on?
Yeah. Well, that and one other thing, and I'll mention that and the other thing in a second. So he sits as the vice chairperson of the Nevada Transportation Board of Directors. And little by little, he has used the most of his authority to really push the narrative that these HOV lanes are unfair and not useful and create problems. So the 24-hour HOV lanes that exist, across our freeway system have slowly but surely been pared down to the point where it's just weekdays, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, that those HOV lanes are exclusively for 2 passengers or more. And people do get cited all the time. For instance, between July 3rd, 2024 and basically now, there have been 156 HOV lane violations that were submitted by law enforcement to the Las Vegas Municipal Court. So that's that portion that is just in the city limits, et cetera. And 119 of those were found liable for their violations. Anyway, Stavros Anthony has made it a personal mission to rid Las Vegas of all HOV lanes. And he basically is saying, look, we had to do the study because I can only do so much in my role. We need federal authority to get rid of them altogether because of various funding issues, et cetera. So a study that he championed is 1 year into a 2-year process. Reading between the lines of his statements to the Review Journal, it seems like the fix is on, that no matter what the actual findings may be, that it's going to be found to be not useful for our community. And he also bragged about his relationship with the Trump administration, more or less, that they would be more amenable to ridding us of the menace of HOV lanes than the Biden administration was. Now, there was some pushback from the RTC. A spokesman over there for our Regional Transportation Commission, Sue Christiansen, said, well, carpool lanes are actually picking up steam, and our stats are showing that more people are sharing rides, and it's probably a good thing, but, go do your study, y'all. And I think that the motivation here is that just Stavros Anthony, there's nothing he hates worse than trans athletes, which is his other platform, than to see trans athletes on their way to a sporting event passing him while he's stuck in the slow lane on the freeway. I think that's just really his personal vendetta.
It does seem like he has a personal problem with HOV lanes, but like, are these lanes useless? Like, what are the stats? Like, what are the best arguments on both sides of this debate?
Well, I'm going to hold off answering that question, sir, until that federal study is done.
The federal study with a predetermined conclusion.
I don't know that that's true. It seems to be implied.
This is like a whole systemic issue, and I've talked about this before ad nauseum of like, if you want to reduce congestion and traffic, you actually have to take cars off the road, not add more cars to the road. Like, the principles of induced demand have long been studied that if you expand highways, cars will fill it. If you want to take cars off the road and reduce congestion and actually improve transportation, you have to invest in other types of transit. And so I think if that's really the goal, which is not the goal. That's not the goal of this. Like, this goal is just like a vendetta for HOV lanes.
That's what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
So when I read this, I was like, wait, why? Why are we doing this? It seems I love using HOV lanes when I've got someone in my car, right? Zooming along.
I think the idea here, and again, he doesn't need me to defend him because I've been mean so far, is that, although I try to base it all on fact, is that there is a lot of congestion on our freeways. I think anyone who rides our freeways on a regular basis, and then oftentimes they'll look over and they'll say, look, there's an empty lane of traffic. There aren't as many people utilizing it. We don't come from a culture where people like call their friends to go carpool. So this is just a big waste of a perfectly good lane that we could all be using. Although I do agree with MJ's actual evidence-based study that the more lanes, the more traffic that you do have anyway, more congestion. But I think beyond anything else, the folks that he talks to think that it is a nanny state idea that you're going to be saving the world by encouraging carpools, and it's all just another way to oppress, the working person, probably working man who just wants to drive to a good location by himself without someone in the back seat or front seat yabbering.
If you pick up your coworker and go to work together, then you'll get there faster. Isn't that? And then like the umbrella idea is like there'll be less cars on the road. Isn't that what HOV lanes are?
Theoretically. I think the people Stavros Anthony talks to are kind of an echo chamber. Just, on this issue at least, and probably many others.
This is like a tangential story, but for the first time ever, I was visiting another city that had HOV lanes. And for the first time ever I've seen this, someone actually propped their seat up to make it look like another person was in the passenger. My Uber driver did. And I was like, someone actually does that. So
that's a Seinfeld episode. Didn't someone carry a dummy in their car so they could use the HOV lane?
I mean, that's a whole cottage industry of mannequin making. We should maybe do that for manufacturing here. That seriousness.
Back on top, like, how did HOV lanes get politicized of all things? They're not something that I even think about as being controversial. Like, are they woke now?
I think a lot of people look at it as virtue signaling in a lot of ways, that it maybe isn't making a big difference for climate control in the same way that, making sure that you get your orange juice bottle in the recycle isn't going to save the world. And I think there is this kind of idea of, the me 2.0 of 2020s, like the 1980s, where it's like, why shouldn't I be able to drive where I want, when I want, especially if I see an open lane?
I mean, there is a trend to actually wokeifying, quote unquote, or like making, or not wokeifying per se, but calling public policy that is just based on science and data as woke. We saw that with like when the 15-minute city, the idea of that taking off, where like you should be like 15 minutes within any resources at, and a lot of city planners wanted to organize cities around this idea just because of what the data shows and just how it would make things efficient and climate friendly and eco-friendly and good for the people in the community. But then that actually got a lot of backlash too. And so I don't think it's actually outside of, because people heard it and thought and heard, and there's just a lot of conspiracy theories around, oh, we're going to restrict you to districts like in the Hunger Games, and like it is so
can we have a grocery store and a post office?
Can
we make sure everyone is within 15 minutes of a grocery store and a post office?
Exactly. But I'm using that as an example to say there is a past precedence for people taking these ideas from city planners, from transportation planners, of how to make things more efficient, climate friendly, and good for society, and kind of saying, not in my backyard, and like this is woke, and like there is a precedence for this, so it doesn't surprise me that HOV lanes have been incorporated into it.
It seems like in our current political climate, we like interpreting things that are nice and nice for everybody and fair for everybody as offensive to a few people. And so I am definitely sick of the self-centered culture, especially when that change doesn't really affect you. You just don't want other people to have things.
I just want to end with this note. In the story, Lieutenant Governor Stavros Anthony said that from the feedback he's heard, he's under the assumption that the majority of Southern Nevada residents don't support the carpool lanes in the valley. And like I said, I don't think he's talking to enough people. But if people really do want to have their voice heard to the regional planners, to the transit people, right now the RTC is running 3 separate surveys about people's needs in the community, what they desire from transit, and specifically the Safe Space Initiative and the Nevada Strong 2050 program have surveys online. They take about 3 minutes to 5 minutes to get all the way through. They ask really poignant questions about how you utilize transportation, what's important to you. And I think that's the actual feedback that people who are in the decision-making places should be looking at. So I encourage people to go to the Regional Transportation Commission, RTC website, and take those surveys. And they also have prizes for people if your name gets picked or whatever. But yeah, I think that's a nice way to a call for action to actually, not have the assumptions dictate our policy, but have people's actual input do that.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes you just want to try something new, something local, special, maybe even a little inspiring? Well, that's Crush Pad Wine Bar. Crush Pad, it's a locally owned, award-winning wine bar created by a husband and wife team, both certified wine pros who believe wine should be fun, welcoming, and never pretentious. And on Saturday, July 26th, they're hosting their biggest event yet, the Grand Wine Tasting. It's going to be a beautiful evening of more than 25 wines poured by local wine experts. You get a grazing table, charcuterie, a take-home artisan goblet, live music, and it's all for a great cause, supporting the Nevada Ballet Theater. Tickets are $150, or you could go VIP for rare wines and early access at 6 p.m. Space is limited, so grab your tickets now at crushpadwinebar.com. That's crushpadwinebar.com. And hey, there's going to be a lot of wine involved, so be safe and consider taking a rideshare. Again, that's crushpadwinebar.com. Go check it out.
Hey all, I'm Jamie Lynn Sigler, a mom, actor, and advocate. I know how overwhelming it can be trying to decide which treatment is right for you. I've been there. But you should know you're not alone. You can do this. Start with some research, talk to the community, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask your doctor questions. You might find results that speak for themselves. That's how I landed on Kesimpta. Ask your doctor if Kesimpta, ofatumumab, could be right for you. You can check out the details at kesimpta.com.
All right, so unbelievably, there are still some pandemic-era programs that are in place, emergency programs like the housing voucher program, which are now slated to end. MJ, can you tell us a little bit more about this program, why it's ending, and what should be done?
Absolutely. So for a long time in our society, we've had housing vouchers, formerly known as Section 8, to allow to subsidize low-income individuals' rents. But during the pandemic, through the American Rescue Plan Act signed into law in 2021 under former President Joe Biden, they allocated $5 billion for a new program called Emergency Housing Vouchers, which was designed to actually get to help some of the most severe cases that normally don't qualify for other type of vouchers, to ensure that they can be housed too, which is important because during the pandemic you need housing. But this was actually to make sure that specific populations, usually those that are chronically homeless, those that have difficulty getting other type of housing assistance, making sure that they're housed. This was kind of one case manager that I talked to likened it to a golden ticket because of how quick they're able to house individuals. Right now, there's still 600 active in the state of Nevada. I think at the time when the act was signed into law in 2021, it authorized 70,000 across the country, but 600 are active still now. But cities have been able to take huge numbers of people off their housing rolls and actually place them in housing due to this voucher. It was supposed to be funded through 2030, but the cost of living has kind of increased, and so that funding was there's less of that funding going around. I think there was some hope that maybe the government would give them more money, but letters went out to a lot of housing authorities across the country saying, actually, we're giving you one more allotment and then we're done in 2026. And so a lot of service providers are kind of worried what that means for the people, the vulnerable populations that they actually been able to place in housing due to this quote unquote golden ticket, to this special voucher that was authorized through the pandemic. They knew there was always an end date, but they didn't think it was going to be this fast. And so we're going to have to watch and see what the actually is going to mean for the people that are utilizing this, and what this is going to mean for social service providers that are helping our most vulnerable Nevadans.
Hey, let me ask a couple follow-up questions so I make sure I understand. So this is a federal program that was open to many states, but the program here in Las Vegas, or in the Las Vegas Valley, is still active, or will be until 2026.
Yeah, so throughout the state of Nevada, so not just Las Vegas Valley, but yes, throughout the state of Nevada, we've been operating and still have active vouchers out. My understanding, too, is this voucher doesn't carry over. So if someone becomes self-sufficient and exits the voucher program, that voucher doesn't transfer over to somewhere else. But we still have 600 active vouchers throughout the state. I think a little bit over 400 in the Southern Nevada region, and then scattered throughout the rest of the state, so northern and rural. But yeah, we do have some active, but there's going to be running down quicker than anticipated.
So these are essentially 600 individual households that are receiving aid with their rent.
Yes, households. Thank you for that. That's a good clarification. It's not individuals, they're households. Right. So a lot of this could be families with children, seniors with disabilities, individuals, but yeah, this households.
And once this program ends, since they are not in Section 8, they're in theory someone who doesn't qualify for that program, perhaps because of income, but are still low income, they will not be receiving help with rent anymore.
So in theory, yes. In theory, they
at
could
least
roll
from this
over.
Program. I mean,
from this program, yes.
Yeah.
In theory, they would roll over into something else, but we're also in the time where we're looking at federal cuts to other program sources. And so in theory, a lot of this is we have to wait to see the state of play of what federal dollars are going to actually look like for other programs. But in theory, you're supposed to roll into maybe another section or a voucher program or another housing assistance program, but those dollars aren't determined yet going forward, so that there's a lot of uncertainty of what this is going to mean in the long run if you have to roll over people into programs that might not get more funding.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from personal experience, one of the issues that is somewhat overlooked in our country is what happens, if you, for example, qualify for Section 8 if you make under $25,000 a year, what happens when you make $26,000, right? And that's not just housing, that's all of our services. That's, Medicare, that's food stamps, that, the difference between being able to get back on your feet and succeed is that sometimes once you start succeeding, you are $100 out of the income range to be able to apply for these programs.
That's exactly right. And one other quick note please. I wanted to mention too is what made, according to social providers that I interviewed for the story, what made this emergency voucher extra special was just it had less rules from HUD, and so they could house more people. One example that they gave me is people with criminal records. They're usually prohibited from applying for things like Section 8 or certain housing assistance. This didn't have such requirements, and so they were allowed to serve a lot more vulnerable populations that are on our street that are experiencing homelessness and having a difficult time finding housing and getting stability.
And I just want to shout out that, MJ, you know all this because you have written a really great article for the Nevada Current. So if anybody else wants to dive in detail, please look up MJ's article in Nevada Current. So again, from having been on public assistance programs in the past in other states, people usually perceive this as a handout until I say, oh, well, I'm on Medicaid. I'm on food stamps. It's like, oh, not you, which I can only say probably has a lot more to do with the fact that, like, I'm white and have a job. And we have these very narrow understandings of who might need aid. So, David, I think, like, again, speaking of the political climate that we're in right now, programs like this are often perceived as being a handout. And if you just work harder, you won't need a voucher to help you find a house. So how do we push back against that narrative?
Well, we look at it as a community safety net, which is often called. And if you could just visualize the metaphor of a net to catch people or to, kind of plug in certain gaps that people might fall through so that they don't become, and here's how I would argue it, greater costs to the community at large, because a housed, healthy, educated person is going to be less likely to, be in a distressed situation or scare you, when you're walking up to get your gas pumped in, or when you're walking out of the supermarket, or even if you're a really empathetic person and you see people baking literally to death in the streets, that if, these things are happening where programs, community safety net programs are in place, not only are you probably saving lives, but you're also like lowering the cost of your own medical care because the emergency room's not inundated.
Right.
Like there's lots of, good consequence from, making sure that the most vulnerable in our society have that safety net. And when you lose these kind of programs that MJ has written extensively about, it's a snip in that safety net. And you get enough snips into the safety net and it's not a safety or a net anymore. It's just straight to the ground and crash. So
it's just some string.
Yeah, it's no longer sufficient. And we are a prosperous people. And I like to think that as much as equity and inclusion have now become dirty words, that empathy, which also seems to be headed on the fast lane, the HOV lane, to being a naughty word that people that are calling toxic, comes back into vogue, if you will, and that we look at these programs being lost on the federal level and we figure out how we as a government, as a people, prioritize it, whether it's through bolstering the nonprofits that are doing the work that the government should be doing, or electing those officials who understand the holistic view of how a city actually thrives and succeeds for its people.
Yeah, and I want to point out, too, that studies have shown that people are on government assistance or social welfare on average for 3 years. That for most people, these are not permanent solutions. They are a way to get you back on your feet. And here I am, a perfect example. I was on government assistance about a decade ago. Now I'm a homeowner. So without that help, though, which I have to credit New York State, I don't know if I would be here. And one of the things I do really respect about Nevada is that there is quite a bit of focus on helping the middle class as well, that it's not just about extremely low income groups, that there are public assistance programs of all different varieties for teachers, veterans, and people making a reasonable amount of money that need a little bit of help. I think that's great. All right. So are you both familiar with the card game Uno?
Never heard of her.
Let me play my reverse card and ask you if you're familiar with the game Uno.
Uno? I just met her. Wait, that doesn't even make sense.
And now I'm going to play my draw 2 to MJ, so he has to give 2 facts about Uno.
Oh.
You don't have to give 2 facts about Uno, MJ. Listen, there is this, I don't know if you saw on the internet this week, but the internet was losing its mind because these photos came out that people thought that Uno was being introduced as a table game at the Palms and that you could actually go and bet on Uno. I am sorry to break anybody's hearts out there, but you can bet on Uno in your own homes semi-legally, but it is not an official table game at any casino or resort here in Las Vegas. The confusion was that the Palms just launched a themed suite called Uno Social Club, which I think is interesting because when I saw the title Uno Social Club, I was like, oh, is this like, the bars you can go to and they have board games and stuff? I'm like, is this a board game bar, but just for Uno? No, it's a private suite. So it's a social Like, it was for a contest for a winner and a friend, which, like, I think we all know that Uno with 2 people isn't the most fun Uno that's out there. You know what I mean?
Your hands
It
aren't
could be
big
a
enough to hold
slaughter.
all the cards. Come on.
Yeah. And it's like there's less strategy. Anyway, you can now book the Uno Social Club at the Palms Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. It's been described as stocked with more Uno games than you can imagine, including new extensions for even more spirited competition and a personal Uno game host to shuffle decks in style. Oh, you do have like a table dealer there. I didn't realize that. That's pretty funny.
Fun.
And the suite is decked out in the game's classic red, yellow, blue, and green colors. So personally, sounds ugly. That's just me. I do love Uno, but
Do you ever take Uno with you, like on long trips?
Yeah,
or, like
I have a travel
train
Uno
trips
deck.
with
It's like
people. Yeah,
it's a little tiny. You can't see. What is that the size of? It's 2 juicy fruit sticks of gum put side by side. I think the question that remains is that people were so pumped about being able to play and bet on Uno, which again seems questionable. Like, why do you think that this idea of like Uno, not poker, has really captured the public's attention?
There's so much nostalgia with Uno.
Nostalgia? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those games that I think it's so easy to learn, and everyone has fun with it. It's reason why actual like games like War, if you remember War,
Yeah.
where you just split the deck, whatever, have become sanctioned casino games. There are some casinos that have and probably still could offer War to patrons where you bet against the dealer.
That's interesting.
It's like, so I think it's easy to gravitate to stuff that's familiar, nostalgic, and theoretically fun.
Well, kind of along with the idea of betting on War, not actual War, the card game.
Yeah, God forbid.
Are there? I mean, we could get to that future, I think, pretty easily at this
God.
point.
Let's not imagine that, please.
Vegas wouldn't say no.
Are there other games from your childhood that you think should become a casino table game?
Well, I mean, speaking of War, like actual and game like Battleship would be pretty fun.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Do you watch 2 people play and then you bet on it like sportsbook?
I think you have different values on the other side. And if you miss, you lose the bet. And if you hit or sink, you get like double or triple odds or something. I think you just play against the dealer. Or maybe it's a computer these days. But whatever, Battleship could be fun. I mean, all these themes kind of work their way on one level or another into slot machines, so you do see a lot of like classic things that people are nostalgic for sort of operating into some of the storylines, if you will, in a lot of the digital slot machine things. You see those giant creatures, you see those giant structures in the middle of casinos. I mean, that's all kind of part of gameplay.
MJ, what do you think? Is there a nostalgic game you'd like to see as a table game?
What about Chutes and Ladders and it's like a time period? And so like you could be going up, but then all of a sudden, like 10 seconds before you roll and then you're back down on a chute. And so
that's good.
I think that like there's a lot of potential in like Chutes and Ladders.
I have to credit Red Rock Resort and Casino. They put out a video this week of customers playing Candyland. It's a fake video, but yeah, I bet against the dealer playing Candyland. This wouldn't be a table game, but I'd like to see Red Rover. Like, you bet against who is going to make it over,
Okay.
So who would line up? Who would you be competing against? Like drunk bachelor parties or...
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, who do you compete against when you play Texas Hold'em? Drunk bachelor parties.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And one professional poker player.
I have seen competitive tag, not in casinos, but it is fascinating.
Oh my God,
watching some of those
on the Ocho?
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, on ESPN 8. It's the best.
It is the best.
Just people chasing each other through a maze, trying
It's
to touch each other in a
intense.
time.
It sounds
Yeah.
It
fun.
is really intense.
It really is. You got to turn those corners on a dime. And anticipate where your opponent's going to go. You could throw out anything. You could throw out Monopoly. Monopoly would be fun if it was like a Vegas version of Monopoly, and you actually could buy. You could win the casino that you're playing in.
I don't think
Or
that's ever
you go to
gonna happen.
jail if you lose your money, which I think Vegas would be behind as well.
That sounds dystopian. I'm going to make that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it is a game, as we know, about it's a game about capitalism. So that ties up in a lovely bow, I think, everything we've been talking about this episode.
Yeah.
David, MJ, thank you as always for coming and talking about the news.
Thanks so much for having me.
And may you both pass go freely.
All right, before we go today, we've got a couple shout outs from our Neighbors. Neighbors is our membership program, and I just want to say that neighbor Cynthia WC has high praise for the LGBTQA plus Center of Southern Nevada, where all are welcome. Plus, she says they have an amazing primary care clinic located in a medical desert downtown, which is love. I know lots of people that use both the medical care there and all the social services, and there's just fun clubs and yoga and stuff. I highly recommend it too. Celeste W says, hooray for Impact Las Vegas, a women's giving collective, which just awarded their annual grant of $118,000 to Care Chest. That's incredible. And Rachel H. shouts out Herbs by Diane. Oh, yeah, in Boulder City. She says Diane's garden is a true treasure that runs on passion, volunteerism, and the love of the land. She continues to prove that you can grow delicious, healthy food in the desert. And I believe you can buy Herbs by Diane at the Boulder City Farmers Market. And we have our very own local business shout out today to the Las Vegas Distillery in Henderson, which is hosting our next members only event. We got to take a special tour there. We had a great time. The lounge is so transformative. It's gorgeous. And the team really loved their coffee liqueur too. So make sure you try that. And if you want to come along to our next members only event and get your very own shout out to your local small biz, become a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. Our executive producer is Sonia Cho Swanson. Our producer is Layla Muhammad. Our roving producer this week was Francisco Kilgore. Our newsletter editor is Rob Katchel-Reese, and our hosts are David Figler and myself, Sarah Lohman. Music is by OG Moose, All the Kimonos, as well as Bomo and Spring Gang, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. We record this show on the traditional homelands of the Namuvi, the Southern Paiute people. And if you enjoyed this show, tell a friend. You can rate our show and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Las Vegas, on our website. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Take care. Good morning, friends.
Good morning.
Good morning, dearest.
Good morning, beloved.
Oh.